From betrayal to self-discovery, a family manipulation story. I'm Rebecca Torres, and I'm 31 years old. 6 months ago, I discovered my younger brother Derek had been living a luxury lifestyle funded entirely by my nursing salary for over 3 years, while I ate ramen noodles and worked double shifts. The confrontation that followed at Christmas dinner changed everything, but not in the way anyone expected. If you've ever sacrificed everything for family only to discover you were being used, this story is for you. Hit that like button because what happened when I finally stood up for myself will shock you. Let me take you back to where it all began because the signs were there from childhood, I just wasn't ready to see them. Growing up in East LA, money was always tight in the Torres household. My father Miguel worked construction while my mother Carmen cleaned office buildings at night. Derek, 3 years younger than me, was the golden child from day one. When I was 8 and Derek was 5, I remember him breaking my favorite doll during a tantrum. Instead of punishment, Mom scooped him up, stroking his dark curls while he sobbed. "Rebecca's such a big girl," she cooed. "She understands her little brother gets upset sometimes." I stood there holding the doll's severed head, learning my first lesson about family hierarchy. The pattern continued through high school. While I worked weekends at a local diner to save for college, Derek received a brand new guitar for his 15th birthday. "Music is Derek's passion," Dad explained when I questioned the expense. "You're practical, Mija, you'll always land on your feet." That guitar, I later calculated, cost more than I earned in 3 months of slinging hash browns and refilling coffee cups. When Derek quit guitar lessons after 6 weeks, the instrument gathered dust in his closet while I continued scrubbing grease from my uniform. My acceptance to nursing school came with partial scholarship, but I still needed $12,000 for remaining tuition and living expenses. I remember the family meeting in our cramped living room, the smell of Mom's homemade tortillas mixing with the diesel fumes from Dad's work clothes. "We wish we could help more, Rebecca," Mom said, wringing her hands. "But Derek's applying to art school next year and we need to save." I worked 3 jobs that semester, sleeping 4 hours a night, while Derek painted abstract canvases that no one understood but everyone praised as profound artistic expression. The manipulation intensified after I graduated nursing school and landed my first job at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. Suddenly, family emergencies requiring immediate financial assistance became monthly occurrences. Derek needed $2,000 for essential art supplies the same week I was planning to buy my first decent car. Mom called, voice breaking, explaining how Derek's artistic development couldn't be delayed. I canceled the car purchase and took the bus for another 8 months. The requests escalated systematically. Derek's apartment deposit, $3,500. His laptop for digital art portfolio development, $2,800. Emergency dental work that couldn't wait, $4,200. Each time the explanation grew more elaborate, the emotional pressure more intense. "Your brother's so sensitive," Mom would say. "This rejection could crush his spirit permanently." Dad would add, "Family takes care of family, Rebecca. We did it for you when you needed help." But I had never needed help like this. I had worked for every dollar, earned every opportunity through sacrifice and determination. Derek's needs seemed bottomless, his crises conveniently timed with my pay periods. When I started tracking the requests in a small notebook, the pattern became undeniable. Every other Friday, like clockwork, some emergency would arise requiring exactly the amount I could spare from my bi-weekly salary. 3 months ago, everything changed during a routine visit to Derek's apartment in West Hollywood. I had stopped by to deliver another emergency payment, this time $1,500 for car repairs. As I climbed the stairs to his second-floor unit, I noticed the building's gleaming renovation, the Tesla Model S in the covered parking spot, the doorman who greeted me with professional courtesy. Derek's apartment wasn't the struggling artist studio I had imagined. The front door opened to reveal hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and furniture that belonged in a West Elm catalog. Derek appeared from the kitchen, iPhone 14 Pro Max in one hand, wearing a Patagonia hoodie I recognized from my Pinterest wishlist, the one I had bookmarked but never purchased because it cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "Rebecca," he exclaimed, all smiles and casual confidence. "Thanks for coming by, you're literally saving my life with this car thing." I handed him the envelope containing 15 crisp $100 bills, watching him toss it carelessly onto a marble-topped coffee table. The smell of expensive coffee filled the air from a professional-grade espresso machine that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Nice place," I managed, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. "How do you afford the rent here?" Derek's expression shifted slightly, a micro-expression I had learned to recognize in nursing school when patients weren't telling the complete truth about their symptoms. "Oh, I have roommates," he said quickly, gesturing vaguely toward the back of the apartment. "We split everything 3 ways." But the apartment felt personal, lived in by one person. Family photos on the mantel showed only Derek. The bathroom I glimpsed down the hallway contained single-occupancy toiletries, no signs of shared living space. When I asked to meet his roommates, Derek's explanation became increasingly convoluted. They were at work, they traveled frequently, they kept to themselves. That evening, I drove past his building again, noting which lights were on, which windows belonged to his unit. Only one set of windows glowed with warm light, only one silhouette moved behind the curtains. Derek lived alone in a luxury apartment that rented for at least $4,000 monthly, funded by my emergency payments while I shared a cramped studio apartment with a nursing school classmate who snored and left dirty dishes in the sink. The revelation should have triggered immediate confrontation, but instead I found myself paralyzed by a lifetime of conditioning. Maybe he had just moved out. Maybe the roommates were temporary. Maybe I was misunderstanding the situation, just like Mom always said when I questioned Derek's stories. The gaslighting had been so thorough, so systematic that even with evidence before my eyes, I doubted my own perceptions. But my body knew the truth even when my mind resisted. I started experiencing panic attacks during night shifts, my hands shaking as I checked IV drips and updated patient charts. Sleep became elusive, my mind cycling through years of financial sacrifices while Derek upgraded his lifestyle with each emergency payment. I began documenting everything, creating spreadsheets that tracked every dollar given against every luxury item I noticed in his social media posts. The Instagram evidence was devastating. While I had been eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner to afford his emergencies, Derek was posting photos from expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Napa Valley, and shopping sprees at boutiques I couldn't afford to browse. Each post was carefully crafted to suggest a successful artistic career, but I knew the truth. His lifestyle was funded entirely by my nursing salary, while I postponed every personal goal to enable his financial irresponsibility. My cousin Maria provided the final piece of evidence during a chance encounter at Target. She worked in property management and had handled Derek's lease application 18 months earlier. Your parents must be so proud, she said, examining organic vegetables I couldn't justify purchasing. Co-signing for that beautiful apartment, putting down first month, last month, and security deposit, that's real family support. My stomach dropped as she continued chatting about Derek's lease, unaware she was describing financial arrangements my parents claimed not to have. The conversation revealed the full scope of the deception. My parents hadn't just enabled Derek's manipulation, they had actively participated, co-signing leases and providing down payments while simultaneously pressuring me for emergency funds. The car repairs, the dental work, the art supplies, all fabricated crises designed to extract money for Derek's luxury lifestyle while keeping me financially dependent and emotionally controlled. Doctor. Sarah Chen, the therapist I finally called after my third panic attack, helped me understand the psychological mechanisms at work. This is financial abuse combined with systematic gaslighting, she explained during our first session, her voice gentle but firm. Your family has conditioned you from childhood to prioritize Derek's wants over your own needs. They've parentified you, making you responsible for his financial well-being while simultaneously denying you the information necessary to make informed decisions. The therapeutic validation was powerful, but the emotional impact was devastating. Everything I believed about family loyalty, about being the responsible daughter, about Derek's artistic struggles, all carefully constructed lies designed to exploit my nursing salary while maintaining Derek's privileged position. I had been systematically robbed of 3 years of financial progress, professional opportunities, and personal development to fund my brother's fantasy lifestyle. Doctor. Chen helped me prepare for confrontation, explaining that family systems resist change and that exposing manipulation typically triggers escalated manipulation tactics. They'll attack your character, question your memories, and attempt to recruit other family members against you, she warned. But you have documentation now. Trust your evidence over their emotional manipulation. She helped me practice boundary-setting language and prepare for the gaslighting attempts that would inevitably follow. I chose Christmas dinner for the confrontation, knowing the extended family would be present to witness the truth. Aunt Rosa, Uncle Carlos, my grandparents, and several cousins would provide an audience that made denial more difficult. The family gathering would also ensure that any manipulation attempts would be public, forcing my parents and Derek to maintain some level of decorum or risk social embarrassment. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold, the kind of LA winter day that made everyone grateful for the warmth of family gatherings. I arrived at my parents' house on Maple Street at exactly noon, carrying a manila folder containing 3 years of bank statements, Derek's lease information, screenshots of his social media posts, and a detailed spreadsheet calculating the total financial exploitation. The smell of Mom's pozole filled the air, mixing with the pine scent from the artificial Christmas tree and the sound of children playing in the backyard. The living room was packed with relatives, Spanish and English conversations overlapping as cousins caught up and adults debated politics over beer and wine. Derek sat on the couch in his new designer jeans and Apple Watch, scrolling through his phone while Aunt Rosa complimented his natural success and asked about his art career. He accepted the praise with practiced humility, spinning elaborate stories about gallery interest and commission opportunities that I now knew were complete fabrications. Derek, I said, my voice cutting through the ambient conversation like a scalpel through flesh. I have something interesting to show everyone. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees as I opened the folder, the crisp sound of papers rustling unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. My mother's eyes widened in alarm while my father's expression shifted from confusion to dread as he recognized the bank statements. What's all this, Mija? Dad asked, his construction worker's hands fidgeting with his beer bottle. I spread the documents across the coffee table, creating a paper trail of deception that 3 years of manipulation couldn't erase. The first document was Derek's lease application, showing the monthly rent that exceeded my take-home pay. The second was my bank statement, highlighting every emergency transfer made to Derek over 36 months. This, I said, pointing to the lease, is Derek's apartment rental agreement for $4,200 monthly. And this, I continued, indicating the bank statements, shows every emergency payment I've made to Derek over the past 3 years. Car repairs, dental work, art supplies, $73,400 total. The number hung in the air like a physical presence while relatives leaned forward to examine the evidence. Uncle Carlos whistled low, his mechanic's eye recognizing the luxury apartment address. That's in West Hollywood, right, near the design center? His voice carried surprise and something else, respect for Derek's apparent success mixed with confusion about the emergency payments. Aunt Rose's expression shifted from admiration to calculation as she processed the information, her experience as a bookkeeper making the discrepancy obvious. Derek's face had gone pale, but his response was immediate and practiced. Rebecca, you're embarrassing yourself, he said, reaching for the documents. This is family business, not entertainment for Christmas dinner. But Grandma Alina, sharp-eyed at 83, had already grabbed the bank statements and was running her finger down the payment column with the precision of someone who had raised 8 children during the Depression. "Setenta y tres mil?" she asked, her Spanish accent thickening with emotion. "Rebecca gave you $73,000. The number sounded even more shocking in Spanish, the language of our childhood, the tongue that carried weight and truth in our family. Derek's practiced composure cracked slightly as Grandma's dark eyes fixed on him with the intensity that had terrified grandchildren for decades. "It's not what it looks like," Derek stammered, but I was ready for the deflection. I pulled out my phone and began scrolling through his Instagram posts, holding up images of expensive dinners, weekend trips, and shopping sprees that coincided exactly with his emergency requests. "This photo of you at Nabu was posted the same day you texted me about needing emergency money for car repairs," I said, showing the screen to the assembled family. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Each Instagram post I displayed corresponded to an emergency request, each luxury experience funded by my double shifts and sacrificed meals. Aunt Rosa gasped when I showed the Napa Valley wine tour photos posted during Derek's supposed dental emergency. Uncle Carlos shook his head at the designer's shopping spree images from Derek's alleged financial crisis month. "But Derek's an artist," Mom interjected, her voice carrying the same protective tone she had used throughout our childhood. "He needs inspiration, experiences to fuel his creativity. Rebecca, you've always been jealous of his artistic gifts." The accusation was automatic, reflexive, the same manipulation tactic that had worked for 3 decades. But this time I was prepared with Dr. Chen's coaching echoing in my mind. "Mom," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "I need you to explain how Derek's artistic inspiration requires $73,000 of my nursing salary while I work double shifts and eat ramen noodles for dinner." The specificity of the question cut through her emotional manipulation, forcing her to address facts rather than feelings. She glanced desperately at my father, seeking support that wasn't forthcoming as he studied the lease documents with growing comprehension. "This apartment," Dad said slowly, his voice heavy with realization, "this is what we co-signed for last year. You told us it was a shared living situation, that Derek was splitting the rent." His construction worker's pragmatism was cutting through the artistic mythology my parents had built around Derek's lifestyle. The co-signing revelation added another layer to the deception, showing how my parents had been manipulated while simultaneously manipulating me. Derek's explanation became increasingly frantic as the evidence mounted. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he said, standing and pacing near the Christmas tree, his voice rising with each word. "Art isn't just a job, it's a calling. I can't create in poverty. Rebecca makes good money, she can afford to help family." The entitlement in his voice was shocking, even to relatives who had watched him receive preferential treatment for decades. "Can afford." I repeated, pulling out my final piece of evidence, my own bank statements showing the poverty-level lifestyle I had maintained while funding his luxury apartment. "I've been living on $1,500 monthly after giving you emergency payments. I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years. I drive a 12-year-old Honda with a broken air conditioner because every spare dollar goes to your emergencies." The room fell silent except for the sound of children playing outside and the soft hum of Mom's puzzle simmering in the kitchen. The contrast between Derek's privileged lifestyle and my sacrificial living became impossible to ignore or rationalize. Cousin Jennifer, a social worker, broke the silence with professional insight that validated my experience. "This is financial abuse," she said quietly, her voice carrying the authority of someone who dealt with family dysfunction professionally. "Derek's been systematically exploiting Rebecca's generous nature while the family enabled the manipulation." Her words gave permission for other relatives to voice their growing discomfort with what they were witnessing. "I always wondered how Derek afforded that lifestyle on an artist's income," Aunt Rosa admitted, her voice carrying guilt for not questioning the obvious inconsistencies. "But we were told not to interfere in family business." The admission revealed how thoroughly my parents had controlled the narrative, preventing outside family from questioning Derek's suspicious prosperity. My mother's response was explosive and desperate. "Rebecca, you're destroying this family," she shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. "Your selfishness is ruining Christmas, ruining everything. Derek needs support, not attacks. You've always resented his success." But the manipulation tactic that had worked for 30 years fell flat in the face of documented evidence and witness testimony. "What success?" I asked, spreading the final documents across the table. "These are Derek's art sales records for the past 3 years. Zero income from galleries, zero commission sales, zero artistic revenue. His entire lifestyle is funded by my nursing salary while he pretends to be a successful artist." The professional validation Dr. Chen had encouraged me to seek had revealed the truth about Derek's non-existent art career. The revelation shattered Derek's carefully constructed image completely. His success, his artistic calling, his sophisticated lifestyle, all fabricated myths maintained by my financial support and my parents' enabling. The family mythology collapsed in real time as relatives processed the scope of the deception and their unwitting participation in maintaining it. Uncle Carlos, practical and direct, asked the question everyone was thinking. "So what happens now?" "Derek obviously can't maintain this apartment without Rebecca's money." The logistics of Derek's situation became immediately apparent. Without my emergency payments, his luxury lifestyle would collapse within weeks. The spoiled golden child would face real consequences for the first time in his adult life. "That's Derek's problem to solve," I said, standing and collecting my evidence with hands that no longer trembled. "I'm done funding his fantasy life while I work double shifts. I'm done being manipulated into believing his wants are more important than my needs." The boundary I was setting felt terrifying and liberating simultaneously, like stepping off a cliff and discovering I could fly. Derek's response was immediate and vicious. "You're a bitter, jealous bitch," he snarled, his artistic sensitivity evaporating to reveal the entitled core beneath. "You can't stand that I'm creative and you're just a worker bee. Mom's right, you've always resented me." But his attack only reinforced my decision, showing his true character when the financial support was threatened. "I'm proud to be a worker bee," I replied, my voice growing stronger with each word. "I save lives, earn my money honestly, and don't manipulate my family to fund my lifestyle. I'd rather be a bitter nurse than a fraudulent artist." The empowerment I felt was intoxicating, 30 years of suppressed anger and frustration finally finding voice. The confrontation's aftermath was swift and brutal. Dad quietly helped me gather my evidence while Mom alternated between tears and accusations. Derek stormed out, shouting threats about never speaking to me again, a promise I hoped he would keep. Extended family members offered awkward support, many admitting they had suspected the truth but feared family retaliation for questioning Derek's situation. The first month without Derek's emergencies was transformative. My bank account remained stable for the first time in 3 years, allowing me to purchase groceries without calculating every dollar. I bought new scrubs, replaced my broken phone, and scheduled the dental cleaning I had postponed while funding Derek's fictional emergencies. The financial relief was immediate and profound. More importantly, the psychological relief was life-changing. Dr. Chen helped me process the guilt and anxiety that accompanied breaking free from family manipulation. "You're experiencing grief," she explained. "Grief for the family you thought you had, for the brother you believed Derek to be, for the wasted years of financial sacrifice." The therapeutic framework helped me understand that my emotions were normal responses to discovering systematic deception. Derek's reality check came quickly. Unable to afford his luxury apartment without my subsidies, he was forced to move back home with our parents within 6 weeks. The Design Center apartment became a shared room in our childhood home, complete with Mom's protective hovering and Dad's increasingly irritated questions about employment. The artistic fantasy collided with practical reality when Derek couldn't afford basic necessities without external support. My parents' attempts to restore the old dynamic were persistent but ultimately unsuccessful. Phone calls demanding I reconsider my selfishness, emotional manipulation about Derek's depression, threats about family loyalty, all tactics that had worked before but now seemed transparent and desperate. Dr. Chen had prepared me for the escalation, explaining that family systems resist change and that my parents would increase pressure before accepting new boundaries. The extended family's response was mixed but generally supportive. Aunt Rosa privately apologized for not questioning Derek's situation earlier, admitting she had suspected something was wrong but feared family conflict. Uncle Carlos offered to help Derek find construction work, practical assistance that Derek rejected with disdain for manual labor. Cousin Jennifer provided professional resources about family financial abuse, validating my experience with clinical terminology. 6 months later, my life had transformed completely. The nursing salary that had barely covered basic expenses while funding Derek's emergencies now provided comfortable living. I moved to a one-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood, purchased reliable transportation, and started saving for professional development courses. The financial freedom felt miraculous after years of artificial scarcity created by family manipulation. More significantly, I began dating Michael Chen, a fellow nurse I met during a continuing education seminar. Our relationship developed naturally, without the financial stress and family drama that had sabotaged previous romantic attempts. Michael's steady presence and emotional availability contrasted sharply with the chaos and manipulation that had characterized my family relationships. When I told him about Derek's situation, his response was supportive validation rather than pressure to reconcile. Family members who truly love you don't exploit your generosity, Michael said during one of our early conversations about boundaries. Your brother's behavior was predatory, not artistic or sensitive. His perspective, uncontaminated by decades of family conditioning, helped me maintain clarity about the situation when manipulation attempts intensified. Derek's trajectory continued downward as real-world consequences accumulated. Unable to maintain his lifestyle through manipulation, he cycled through various schemes: cryptocurrency investments, multi-level marketing, artistic commissions that never materialized. Each failed venture was accompanied by dramatic appeals for emergency assistance that I consistently declined. The pattern revealed how thoroughly his identity had been built on financial exploitation rather than genuine capability. My parents eventually accepted the new reality, though their acceptance came grudgingly and with persistent attempts to restore Derek's preferred status. Mom still occasionally called with updates about Derek's latest crisis, hoping to trigger my rescuer conditioning. But Dr. Chen's therapeutic work had immunized me against guilt manipulation, helping me maintain boundaries without sacrificing family relationships entirely. The most profound change was internal. Years of questioning my perceptions, minimizing my needs, and prioritizing Derek's wants had created a pattern of self-doubt that extended beyond family relationships. Therapy helped me recognize how the financial manipulation had affected my professional confidence, romantic relationships, and life goals. Breaking free from family conditioning allowed authentic self-development for the first time in my adult life. Today, I'm engaged to Michael, pursuing my nurse practitioner degree and maintaining healthy relationships with family members who respect boundaries. Derek and I have minimal contact, confined to large family gatherings where civility is maintained through social pressure. He eventually found work in retail management, a practical job that provides modest income without artistic pretensions. My parents have adjusted to the new dynamic, though they still occasionally attempt to manipulate circumstances to restore Derek's preferential treatment. The difference is that I now recognize manipulation tactics immediately and respond with consistent boundaries rather than confused compliance. The family system has adapted to accommodate my autonomy, proving that change is possible even in deeply entrenched dysfunctional patterns. The financial impact of ending Derek's support was dramatic. In the 18 months since Christmas confrontation, I've saved $32,000, purchased a reliable car, moved to a better neighborhood, and invested in professional development. The money Derek claimed was easily affordable from my nursing salary was actually preventing every aspect of personal growth and financial security. If you're reading this and recognizing patterns from your own family, please know that financial manipulation is abuse, regardless of family relationship. Trust your perceptions, document evidence, and seek professional validation from therapists who understand family systems. The guilt and fear you feel about setting boundaries are normal responses to lifelong conditioning, not evidence that you're being selfish or unreasonable. Professional help was crucial for my recovery. Dr. Chen provided frameworks for understanding manipulation tactics, strategies for maintaining boundaries, and validation for experiences my family had trained me to minimize. Individual therapy created space for processing grief about lost family relationships while building skills for healthier connections moving forward. The most important lesson was learning to distinguish between family loyalty and family exploitation. True family support is reciprocal, respectful, and honest. Manipulation disguised as family obligation is abuse, regardless of cultural narratives about sibling responsibility or parental authority. Breaking free from financial exploitation was the beginning of authentic family relationships based on mutual respect rather than systematic manipulation. Have you experienced financial manipulation disguised as family emergency? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else recognize their situation. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content about family boundaries and personal empowerment. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for authentic relationships and personal growth. Your family's financial emergencies shouldn't prevent your financial security. Trust your instincts, seek professional validation, and remember that real family support doesn't require your emotional or financial sacrifice. You deserve relationships based on mutual respect rather than systematic exploitation.